In 1947, Phoenix and Tucson were sleepy little resort towns, far from the hustle and bustle of the great American cities of that time. The nearest Major League Baseball teams were in St. Louis, more than 2,000 miles away on the banks of the Mississippi River. That spring, a time when Americans were still readjusting to life following years of war, Bill Veeck and Horace Stoneham brought their baseball teams to Arizona to train. It marked the beginning of a love affair between Arizona and baseball that has grown with the years. For almost 50 years now, Arizonans have marked the beginning of spring by the arrival of baseball. While most of the nation relies on the shadow of a groundhog to predict spring's arrival, it's the phrase, "pitchers and catchers report," that signals the end of winter in the desert Southwest. And just as spring is a part of our seasons, baseball is a part of our heritage, part of our history. It's reminiscent of an early day when life was a lot simpler.
Bill Veeck had come here after the war, and I'd gotten acquainted with him, and I used to tease him about training down in Florida, and I'd call him up in the wintertime when the days were beautiful. I'd say, "Bill, isn't this as good weather as you would want in Florida to train?" "Yes, it is." And I kept after him, and finally he said to me one day, he said, "Next Sunday," he said, "you and I are going to drive over to Phoenix and talk to Horace Stoneham. And if he'll bring the New York Giants to Phoenix to train, I'll bring the Cleveland Indians to Tucson." And they came and trained here, and they kept training here for many, many years. And then when Bill bought the St. Louis Browns and owned them, this was later, and I talked to Bill about having the Browns train in Arizona, and he says, "Where could we go?" And I said, "Well, you could go to Yuma." I said, "They really have better weather than we do. It's hotter in Yuma in the winter and hotter in the summer than it is here, and I'm sure they'd love to have you." So he said, "Well, we might do that." Of course, it took a phone call, but the facts are that our weather here, the records are such that it was a good place to be. The weather is good here. It's as good as Florida. In some ways, it's better.
The year was 1954. A time when a couple of phone calls was all it took to complete a business deal. Veeck's Baltimore Orioles, formerly the St. Louis Browns, became the fourth team to set up camp in Arizona, joining the Indians, Giants, and Cubs. And as a group, the four teams officially adopted the Cactus League title. The Cubs preceded Baltimore, moving to Arizona in 1952 to train in Mesa.
Mesa was a town of about 10,000 people. After the war, it started to grow real, but before the war, the early 40s, it was a small town. And we had a team from Oakland here, from the Pacific Coast League for 1 year. Then in 51, the Cubs came here from Catalina Island. We organized the whole camp shortly after that, and for a long time we were working under the guidance of the Chamber of Oakland. We would still work close with them, but when we got to making these deals and borrowing money and stuff to build the facilities, the Chamber wanted to get us out. That was the beginning of the whole CAMS, and we've been in business ever since 1951.
Spring training was a big hit all over Arizona. One constant that plays a major role in the success of the marriage between the state of Arizona and Major League Baseball has been the active participation of booster groups. These organizations host the teams, operate the stadiums, and help to provide the most beneficial work setting for each of their respective clubs. In return, the communities benefit from the charitable donations from these groups.
The Cleveland Indians were an important part of Tucson's life. They brought some great publicity to the community. They brought money to the community. They brought a lot of nice people here. Some of them came back and stayed and lived here, and we welcome them as visitors, and the same thing's happening now with Denver.
Today, the Cactus League is a very important part of the Arizona economy. The majority of the Cactus League attendees are visitors from outside the state of Arizona, with 52% coming from other states and 3% from foreign countries. Almost 9 out of 10 visitors from out of state indicate that spring training was a reason for visiting Arizona. Stated simply, the Cactus League attracts a significant number of visitors to Arizona who would not be here if it weren't for spring training. These visitors spend on average almost 6 nights during their visit, and the typical travel party spends an average of $180 per day during their stay. The total economic impact for the state of Arizona because of the Cactus League is estimated to be over $300 million. More than 800,000 baseball fans attend Cactus League games each spring, making spring training one of the state's top tourist attractions.
Number 21, Sammy Sosa.
Chicago. Let me hear you. Good and loud. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back.
There have been many changes with respect to spring training since Major League Baseball first arrived in Arizona in 1947. The small resort towns that welcomed baseball so long ago are now major metropolitan cities. As Arizona grew over the years, so did the facilities that played host to Major League Baseball each spring.
Well, of course, when they say in the good old days, that's when the Cubs first came. We had a little park down where the Civic Center is now called Rendezvous Park, and we had a pretty nice hotel called Maricopa Inn, which is there on the corner of Center and Main where the high-rise is. And just everybody relaxed. They liked it because it was not a lot of pressure. We didn't have only 2 bars in town, I guess, at that time.
Yeah, I saw Oakland when they were playing in Mesa. They were there 1 year, and it was extremely primitive. I remember going into the clubhouse there, and the clubhouse looked like a cut-rate hotel room, and the uniforms were hanging on pipes, and players were jammed in together. And I remember Joe Rudy saying, well, you know Charlie Finney, the owner, he said, first class all the way. Charlie was saving money as usual. And then they moved over, I think the next year they moved over to Scottsdale to the old park there. And I can remember Reggie hitting line drives off the board fence wall there, which was brown, made of brown. And the wall reverberating like a cello or something like that. You could hear the sound of it.
Today, new stadiums are replacing the old, and the not so old are getting facelifts. Around the league, 7 of the 8 teams play in stadiums that were either built during the past decade or have undergone major renovations. In each stadium, the Arizona lifestyle is evident. The informal nature of Arizona is represented by lawn seating along the lines in the outfield. Lawn seating is a fixture at more than half the Cactus League parks, including the Peoria Sports Complex, where Seattle and San Diego both play. Dubbed the crown jewel of all spring training sites, this facility features 13 practice fields and can accommodate more than 10,000 fans. The complex is unrivaled, including all of Florida's sites. Regardless of what ballpark you attend, you're likely to hear fans, players, and the media echo the same sentiments. The combination of great weather, the close proximity of the ballparks to one another, and the informality of Arizona makes the Cactus League America's best spring training experience.
Arizona has always kept the more of an informal feeling. There seem to be more young, tiny children at the games, more babies, more of a country ballpark feeling. And of course here it's a lot easier to get around from park to park. And sure fans can come and go see the Giants one day and go see the Brewers the next day and the A's the next day and move around to the complex of ballparks here very easily. In Florida you have to travel.
To be honest with you, spring training for me is a time where the pressure's off and I can enjoy baseball the way I wish I could enjoy it all year long. If I was a fan, this would be the place to come, is because we are accessible and everybody's much more relaxed and therefore you're in a good mood. And you know, when the pressure's on, you've got to be careful how you deal with players. I just know because sometimes I react differently during the season than I do in spring training, you know, because I'm uptight.